Hello! Welcome to Vivasio Stories. I'm B, and this month we are celebrating Mermay. It's an art challenge month that I thought would be fun to do on the channel. So this month I'll talk about books featuring merfolk and I'll have an art piece for each. Today's book is Out of the Blue by Jason June. It is a 384 YA fantasy LGBTQIA+ interspecies romance that is not actually a romance because spoilers, they don't end up together. I sincerely hope this video makes sense because I feel like my brain went in a million different directions. If you haven't read the book, I'll go into a quick summary because I'm about to complain a lot about some of the characters and the ending. So, when the mayor in this book turns 16, they get legs for a month and spend it on land trying to help a human, and they get to decide at the end if they are going to stay on land or go back and be a mayor forever and be given their magic. Our mayor is called Crest, but goes by Rose on land. Our human characters are Sean and Kavia, two plus-size lifeguards that are also on the swim team of their high school. Sean gets dumped by his boyfriend and is very sad about it. So after a cringe meeting and a gender rant, Rose decides that the human they have to help is Sean. And they are also going to do this by helping him get back together with his ex, Dominic, who dumped Sean for his former friend Miguel, a super popular hunk also from the swim team. Fake dating to cause jealousy ensues. Rose experiences humanity and sees the beauty and the messiness of it, like getting in a fist fight with Dominic over Sean. They get together for real, Dominic is toxic and cringe, and a very forced misunderstanding happens, and Rose basically cheats on Sean with another male friend, Drop. And we find out Kavia arranged for it because she has issues and tried to manipulate her friends and everyone over. Rose will admit no guilt, but Kavia guilt trips Sean into forgiving them, and Rose does some big romantic gesture in public for some reason that might or might not be manipulative. Sean falls off a cliff, Rose sacrifices their manhood for him and jumps after him, but Sean dies anyway. And then the Blue makes a big show of magic and saves them both, and they get to choose what they do now. They go their separate ways because they decide that they can leave literally everything they are and know for someone else and to love themselves first. So, in one of Rose's first chapters, there is a reference to part of your world, and this made me worry from the start because there is a limited number of ways this can go. I have selective mutism, and since I was a little girl, I always loved Disney's The Little Mermaid because Ariel gets it, my girl gets it, and the world doesn't get my girl. And it can be hard to love this movie so much because it gets a lot of dumbass hate. It gets the most stupid arguments thrown at it that get debunked by watching the film. But we are not here for the massive rant I've been holding back for a decade. One day I will lose my mind and unleash it all, but today is not that day. There were 3 ways this could go. 1. The author loves The Little Mermaid and these are fun references. 2. The author misunderstood and hates The Little Mermaid and is trying to critique it or mock it through the book. 3. The author loves The Little Mermaid but has some issues with it and is trying to critique it through the book. And I proceeded with caution, hoping for the best. Honestly, the only other people that I found that also love this movie have been mute or part of the LGBT+ or other marginalized communities, so I had hope. I do think that the author likes The Little Mermaid, but they are either making a dig or trying to address the "she left everything for a man" belief, which she didn't. Now, it's completely possible that The Little Mermaid never factored in on the writing of this book, but the reference to it I found made me think otherwise. I think they were trying to explore what Ariel's choice would really entail, There was a character in the book, one of Kavia's mom, who was also a mare and felt love and curiosity about humanity and decided to stay. Very Ariel of her. She left everything and did not regret it, but Ross made it clear that that is not them. I think that is a valid thing to want to explore, but it felt like it was trying so hard to make a point that the story felt forced and rank false by the end of it, and we ended up with things that felt more like taking shots at the movie. The entire ending felt convoluted and fell apart, and this is labeled as a romance, but it doesn't have a happy ending, which I thought was a no-no. The blue in the book is the moon, and its magic is what created the mares and gives them their magic. When they turn 16, they are given a moon on land and a choice which is not much of a choice. It's acknowledged in the book that the choice is stacked against becoming human because no one in their right mind will do it after only a month. I was surprised at this since I thought it would go ignored. It's also mentioned that the mare have secluded themselves and gone no contact with humans. They complain about their actions but do nothing to change things. All they do is look down on humans for it. So when these two things were acknowledged, and with the assumption that this is a romance and so they will have a happy ending together, I thought it wouldn't be a choice between two worlds, but that they will find a third option where they could be together, keep contact with their own life, and maybe help matters in the world. I was looking forward to seeing which compromise they would reach and how. I expected something like what two people from different countries might do, not the toxic way where one is expected to abandon everything forever, but the healthier way where there may be distance but they keep in touch with their family and culture. I thought the blue would see how forced the decision was and how harmful it could be, and give them a better set of choices or permanent shifting. And with the Little Mermaid on my mind because of the references in this book, I thought of King Triton. He always had the power to turn Ariel into a human, but he didn't because he was a controlling father. It isn't until he pushes Ariel away and everything happens that he accepts her choices and transforms her, because he truly cares for her and her happiness. Since this was a commentary on leaving everything for one person, it really gave me the impression the blue would change at the end like Triton did. That it would see how manipulative and stacked the choice was. But that didn't happen. It just turned them both into mare and gave Sean a choice of going with Ross or going back home, which is the same non-choice given to the mare. Once they go their separate ways, Ross, not Crest again, reappears in the epilogue with her friend Drop while Miguel is there. Miguel didn't know about Mer, so this could be a change in that they are not so secretive and isolationist, but there is no other change mentioned or implied. Like, this will have no ecological impact, which was really disappointing. Kavia was another problem for me. She manipulated both of them and meddled in their relationship, something that ended up with her best friend being cheated on. Again, twice in 2 months. And she is very not sorry about it. And then later on, she is only slightly sorry about it, but still blames Sean. And pretty much guilt trips him into forgiving Ross because they have a very hard and unfair choice to make. And while that might be true, and they may not see each other again, Sean doesn't owe Ross anything. And despite his speeches of loving himself first, hurrying to meet them still came off as being a doormat. Kavia's speech wasn't good enough to earn forgiveness, and so it felt like the author tied themselves into a knot, and this was the best they could do. The plot needed Sean at the event to fall into the water and die, so forced forgiveness it is. The misunderstanding that led Ross to end up in a tub with Drop was so forced I felt like I was watching a bad telenovela. Things were very teenage drama. And not only did Ross not come across as very sorry, the rom-com grand gesture felt manipulative too. The ending was just so terribly handled, which is a pity because I had been enjoying it. This is not something that happens often for me in standalone books, but since the romantic connection was good, I didn't mind their more physically intimate scenes, which were pretty vague but made sense plot-wise. Though they did feel kinda weird because I was a concerned adult thinking they were too young. Like, someone throw a bucket of cold water at these kids, please. Something that was funny but then got annoying was Ross being non-binary and constantly complaining about gender. They were like, I don't understand why they care. Us men don't care, but they care so much. Ross kept trying to make these points about things and making it about humans, but it was a very US-centric view, which I would guess is the majority of the audience, but it bothered me as an immigrant. And it was sort of funny until it came across as condescending superiority. It got obvious very fast it was the author using the characters to preach, and that is always annoying regardless of what the preaching is about. That being said, I did appreciate that when they describe people, it was as female presenting and male presenting, because when they get described as male or female, it's weird. How would you know? Despite my strong dislike for that ending, I enjoyed most of the book. It started a bit cringy, but once I got used to the characters, it was pretty fun and lighthearted. The characters did come off as dramatic, but that is understandable for teenagers, for the most part. Things can get intense. I do like this trope in the media of non-humans experiencing humanity for the first time and all the wonderful, weird, and messy things that come with it. At times, it got pretty heartwarming, like when Sean would make Ross watch all those romance movies or that video event they attended. Ross was someone that thought very low of humanity due to the havoc they wreak on the oceans, but they were able to see that there was more to being human and even learn to love them. I just wish that would have been more relevant for the ending and the future. Even Ross' self-sacrifice at the end was meaningless because the consequences didn't last 5 seconds. Immediately undone. I thought it was very funny to have them experience jealousy, which they had been on their high horse about before, to the point of getting in a fist fight over a boy. That is one of the most embarrassing things you can do. Never fight like that over a boy. The book was long enough that it allowed for the characters to actually bond and have some pretty cute dates. They were very thoughtful and sweet, though it did take a big chunk of the book for Sean to think romantically of Ross. By the time that happened, they already had a nice friendship and didn't feel as too fast. And Dominic, the ex, he was so awful, and I enjoyed him so much. He was the worst, but also so cringe. And got a bad ending. I read books where the crab ex gets a good ending, and they make me see it. I'm happy to say this is not one of those, and let me tell you, he does the Grey's Anatomy pick-me speech, and I laughed so hard. The execution really fell apart for me. It felt like a broken promise, and truth be told, other Jason June books have gone down in my priority list because the trust has been broken. Expectations that I have for the story and the world just fell apart, and I'm left wondering what was the point of that. At the end, everything is pretty much as it was, but now Sean is not a doormat, supposedly. The message was good, but I feel like I got invested in this relationship over nothing because the expectations of a romance were not met. This left me disappointed, disliking the characters, and annoyed that it's labeled as a romance, but I enjoyed it for a while. It's pretty fun if you like dramatic teens, characters feeling emotions for the first time, non-humans learning to love humanity, and don't mind a little preaching, the plot getting a bit forced and convoluted, or that the couple doesn't end up together. Before I leave, I can't keep holding this in my heart. I need to let it out. Even if the plot of The Little Mermaid was Ariel leaving everything for a man, I would support that because Prince Eric knows how to treat a girl. He is genuinely a good man and a catch. You could search the 7 seas and not find one like him, so I would support staying on land solely for him. Most of you guys don't understand how quickly you lose your humanity in people's eyes when they realize you can't talk. and they treat you like absolute garbage. And he never did that. He always treated her with kindness and respect and did a wonderful job trying to guess her name and not just calling her something demeaning, because what was she gonna do about it? Complain? He gets so much crap as a Disney prince for no reason. And while we're at it, his Broadway song, One Step Closer, magnificent. The Broadway songs in general are amazing. I had a weird time with this week's piece. I did some test colors back where I did the sketch and they look so nice, and tried them here and it was hideous. And then it was like my brain stopped perceiving color properly and I had to restart the coloring. I almost scrapped it, but then I decided to stick it through. Also, I wanted their tails and transformation to look kinda magical with light, but I don't know how it ended up being. I did have more fun with the scales this time. I remember a piece I did years ago and remember the scales were relaxing, so I wanted to try it again and it was still relaxing. That was nice. I do wish more of these books had variety, because my favorites are jellyfish-based merfolk, because I like doing the bioluminescence, but most merfolk in books are pretty basic. That was all for today. The video ended up a little negative, but I hope it still felt respectful. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a merry mermaid. Bye!